The fires are still burning in Los Angeles, but we have some good news from the land of Hollywood. We've got our nominations for the Oscars. We're going to talk about that and more on today's episode of the Geek Watch podcast.
This is the Geek Watch podcast with Brian Hatcher and Mandy Petry.
Greetings, Geek Watchers, and welcome to episode 239 of the Geek Watch podcast. I'm Brian Hatcher, and with me, as always, Geek Watch's very own resident geek goddess, Mandy Petry.
Hello, Brian.
So I want to start off with something that surprised me online, and it was something I should have realized, and I hadn't thought about it, but as you may know, I'm a big fan of watching reaction videos on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they're the trailers or in some cases movies that are online that people are watching and reacting to. I just love that. I don't very often get to go to movies with other people, but part of my love of watching movies with people is seeing their reactions. I get more enjoyment out of seeing other people react to movies than really reacting myself in many cases. So I love reaction channels, and it hadn't occurred to me, but obviously now that Wicked is on streaming and you can watch streaming, I have been seeing reactions online.
Oh, yes.
And that's been a lot of fun to watch.
Oh.
Because we're now in a situation where the people who really were into the movie, of course, went to the theaters and saw it. A lot of the people who are reacting now, it's not necessarily a movie they would have gone out to see, but when you have a reaction channel, you react to stuff, that's your content. A lot of these are starting out with people going, well, I don't know that much about this movie. And there are a lot of guys who are watching this movie. And it's amazing how many guys are getting teary-eyed watching this movie. I will say so far, my all-male viewing reaction videos, I think the three top right now that I've seen, Said by Ty, he did a reaction that was absolutely amazing.
Oh.
And then the Real Rejects, REEL Rejects, there was three gentlemen who watched the movie. And yeah, even the thumbnail, I knew it got them.
Oh.
My absolute favorite so far, there's a reaction channel called Writer Reacts, and he's a screenwriter and a stage actor, and he does musical theater. So there's he got the eye sweats. There, I actually saw one video where the guy was crying and an arrow pointed to his face and said eye sweats. But Writer Reacts, he's very knowledgeable about theater. He's a professional theatrical musical actor, and so he picked up a lot of stuff I didn't even see in the movie. For example, in Popular, I noticed, as I'm sure you did, that when Galinda was pulling out shoes.
Yes, ruby slippers. Yes,
She
and
pulled
click
out
them together.
3 times.
Yes.
I didn't notice the clicking of the heels.
I did, yes.
Yeah, I figured, well, yeah, she did do that. That's awesome. So I was today years old, as the kids say, when the heel clicking. I was like, okay. But it's been really entertaining to see a lot of people who are going in and watching Wicked, who is like, years ago I watched The Wizard of Oz when I was a kid, but I don't know what to expect. And then by the end, tears, I swear to God.
Yes.
Men and women both, everybody just really just being hit pretty hard by this movie. It's great to relive that again. I'm now starting to see some reactions to Nosferatu now that it's hit streaming.
Ooh, yeah.
Different reactions there, but it will be entertaining to watch that. But I did want to talk some Oscar stuff.
Yeah. Speaking of Wicked and Nosferatu.
Oh, yes. Speaking of that, of course, they delayed a lot of the announcements because of the fires in Los Angeles, which are unfortunately still going on.
Yeah.
But they have finally announced their nominations for the Oscars. And how much of that do you know? How much of it have you seen online?
The ones I was looking for the most were costumes, and I think maybe I looked at Best Picture, but yeah, that was pretty much looking at the most was this.
What's interesting about Best Pictures, the way they've got things split up is that you do have a lot of the blockbuster Hollywood movies like Dune Part 2, The Substance, which is basically a body horror movie.
Yeah. which
but
you hardly ever get
you hardly see horror movies getting
nominated for
stuff.
much. Yeah.
Yeah, and The Substance is getting a lot of nods, which is great. I love seeing horror movies step up. And of course, we
You get like Silence of the Lambs, or you get Misery every once in a while.
Yeah,
Do you get that?
exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is, with The Substance, not only is it a horror movie, it's a really brutal one. It's a rough movie, but
Yeah, I haven't got to see it yet, but it is on my list that I want to sit down with it and really take my time to take it in.
It's one of those that this may be a good movie to watch at home because if things get a little too intense, you can always pause it and step away from it, where in a movie theater, you can't do that. It's relentless. And so that might be a little bit more palatable watch, but I do love that a really brutal, but a movie that really does have something to say. So I'm enjoying the heck out of the fact that The Substance is getting its nod. Of course, Wicked is in there as well. But along with that, you're getting a lot of movies also that fall into another category where they're like really off the beaten path. Amelia Perez, that's gotten a bunch of nods, a foreign film.
Well, that killed at the Golden Globes. I mean, it was
yeah.
talk of the Globes.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm not surprised to see that on there. I haven't watched it yet.
But with movies like I'm Still Here, Honora, Nickel Boys, you're seeing a lot of those films that not a lot of people know about.
Right.
I've noticed that, at least in the voting for the Oscars, you do have two sets of voters. You have the ones who are very much in the popular camp, and they are looking at your typical movies.
Yeah, like 20 years ago, a Netflix movie would have never been nominated. And now it's got all these Golden Globes, and it's on the Oscar contender list.
For sure. And I think a lot of these voters, they want to show that they have more taste when it comes to movies. They're more of a connoisseur of film, so their nominations tend to be off the beaten path. And so I think you're seeing a lot of that here in Best Picture. But depending on how things go, I wouldn't be willing to lay any money down on anything. I expected to see Wicked be nominated for Best Picture. I don't expect it to win.
I'm in the same boat. I really feel like all the big wins in the Wicked camp are going to come from Wicked 2.
Yeah.
I really do. That's where our heaviest acting is going to happen. That's where the tragedy is going to be, because we've barely seen the character arcs yet. We've only seen half the story. That's where we're going to see the big changes in these characters and what makes them who they are. So I think that's where our big acting is going to happen. So I think that's where the big wins are going to happen.
And I agree with that. I also believe that the Academy is basically looking at Wicked and Wicked Part 2 as one single piece of art. And so they're going to wait for it to complete. And then Oscars next year that are given to Wicked for good are basically going to be for both parts of the movie. So,
I might get costumes. I haven't seen Nosferatu.
I do have to say the costuming is really good on Nosferatu. The costume is really good in Conclave as well. But I really think Wicked's getting costume design this year. I really do. Because there's just so much of it. And even with your main characters, you have multiple costume changes.
So much story with the clothing.
Exactly.
With everyone's clothing, and not one character is wasted. Each munchkin, like Bach, has his own, down to his shoes and the way his shoes tell a story, that he's trying to make himself taller so that it's just, we could go on but let's get back to the list.
Oh, yes. So with Best Picture, you've got 10 pictures.
Yeah.
And that was something they did a few years ago, decided they wanted to nominate 10 spots for Best Picture. And I think it's a good idea to do that because even if you don't win,
you're still nominated.
You're a nominated picture, and that can give you a boost.
Clout.
Yeah, it gives you some boost. And a lot of the nominated pictures, of course, get a second life in the theaters. And I have to admit that I am keeping my fingers crossed, hoping that Wicked might get another pass through the theaters, specifically the IMAX, because, of course, with Moana 2, basically kicked them out of the IMAX theaters and went on to make $1 billion. So that wasn't a bad move. I just would like to get the chance of seeing Wicked in IMAX because it's such a gorgeous film. I'd love to see it on the big screen, but I guess we'll find out there. It looks like 2026 may be their year for getting a lot of the nods because John Chu did not get nominated for Best Director. most of that field is, like I said, those off the beaten path movies, except for The Substance, which I think it might be where the Academy goes, perhaps. Although Amelia Perez pulled a lot, like you said, pulled a lot of Golden Globe nods. Maybe Jacques Audier might get to take the statue home for that. Best Actress is going to be really interesting because you got Cynthia Erivo in there, but you also get Demi Moore for The Substance.
Yeah, it's hard. I feel like it may go to Demi because, again, I think that Cynthia's going to get it next year for Wicked for Good.
Yeah, I'm thinking that the Academy might be figuring that Cynthia's going to get another crack at it next year, but obviously...
And she's so young, and mathematically, if you do all the calculations, Demi's at the right age for getting an Academy Award. So
Yeah, and I'm sure the Academy is going to be thinking, Cynthia Erivo, amazing, but she's going to get another crack at it next year. Let's maybe revisit it and possibly give it to her next year.
And this will not be her last Academy Award-winning role.
No.
It will not be.
Because this is her second Oscar nomination, and I'm sure, she'll probably be up again next year.
I'm waiting for this girl to EGOT.
Yeah, she's one away. If when she gets her Oscar, she will have
Will she?
Yes.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, she's already got the Grammy, she's already got the Tony, and she's already got an Emmy.
Oh, what was the Emmy for?
I'm trying to remember what the Emmy was for.
Was it for, because she was in a Stephen King show. I don't remember what it was.
Yeah, I don't think it was that, but I
Okay.
do know she did get the Emmy. So yeah, she's just one
Excellent.
away. So once she
Oh,
gets,
wow.
yep,
Yes.
and that may be next year. Now for Best Actor, here's what I think this is going to be interesting because this is too close to call. I think across the board because you've got Timothée Chalamet who has been nominated twice. This will be his second nomination, but you have Ray Fiennes, who a lot of people are thinking he might edge everybody else out because it'll be an Oscar for his career, not just for
Right.
this particular
Yes.
role. But you got Sebastian Stan as Trump.
Yeah.
I don't know. That might be tempting to give him the Oscar for
Yeah.
that. Best Supporting Actor, Kieran Culkin is nominated for Real Pain, which is a comedy, as Best Supporting Actor. And a lot of people are thinking he's a shoo-in for this.
Huh.
Best Supporting Actress, Ariana Grande for Wicked, and a lot of people are thinking she's getting it this year. Although Zoe Saldana for Amelia Perez, I think she got the Golden Globe, didn't she?
I'm not for certain.
But people are thinking this is Ariana's year. I hope it goes that way because that opens up a slot for another supporting actress for Wicked next year because there's no need to put her up twice.
Right.
I'm not sure who they necessarily might do. I mean, you could do Michelle Yeoh, although she already has an Oscar.
Yeah.
So does she need another one? Well, she might want another one. But I really think, and I'm trying to remember what her name is, the actor who plays Nessarose. But for the second part of Wicked, maybe that gets her an Oscar nod. That would be nice. I will say I was shocked that Best Adapted Screenplay, Wicked was not in there at all. Everything was basically the off the beaten path. Sing Sing got a nod there, which didn't really get a nod anywhere else. But I thought possibly with the Best Adapted Screenplay that maybe the Academy was looking at Wicked. There's not a lot of difference between that and the stage play, not enough to justify saying that it was a full adaptation.
Okay.
Although Wicked did get nominated for Best Original Score, so I don't know. I'm not sure where that falls. I don't really have a dog in this fight, except that I hope Sing Sing gets adapted screenplay because they didn't really get a whole lot of acknowledgement elsewhere, so it'd be nice for them to take something home. But for the original screenplays, I could see The Substance getting that one. Although, again, with the Nora and The Brutalist, maybe Jesse Eisenberg gets it for A Real Pain. I don't know. But I feel like The Substance may wind up taking that one home. But Best Costume Design, we talked about this before, but we got A Complete Unknown, which is a period piece, but it's not that far back in the past.
Right.
And Conclave, obviously the costuming there was great, and Gladiator 2 as well. I could see maybe Nosferatu getting it, but it would be a shock to me if Wicked didn't take that prize, for sure. Best Makeup and Hairstyling, again, A Different Man, Amelia Perez, Nosferatu, and The Substance. Again, I feel like this is Wicked's. But Best Original Score, Wicked is definitely in the running. Wild Robot's in the running. Conclave, The Brutalist, Amelia Perez. I don't know where that goes. I know where my heart is, obviously.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Best editing, again, Anora, The Brutalist, Conclave, Amelia Perez, and Wicked. I can see Wicked getting best editing for that. But I also feel like Wicked should be definitely for best sound, if only for the fact the technical expertise it took to record live singing.
Oh, yeah.
And to make it come out as great as it did.
Was Gladiator nominated for that?
No, it wasn't.
Okay, because that would be the only thing I would think about. Difficulty would be Gladiator other than Wicked.
Yeah. A Complete Unknown, Dune Part 2, Amelia Perez, Wild Robot are the others in that field. And like I say, just on the technical side of it, with everything they had to do with Wicked, I feel like they're the lock on best sound. Best visual effects, I think that's going to be a toss-up, but there you've got Alien Romulus, Better Man, Dune Part 2, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and again, Wicked.
I'm glad the sci-fi is getting their due in that category at least.
Those type of movies are more likely to use visual effects, but yeah, now that visual effects are so ubiquitous, sometimes they do get shut out. Then with best cinematography, you have The Brutalist, Dune Part 2, Amelia Perez and Maria, and then Nosferatu. I really feel like Nosferatu should be the shoe-in. I know you haven't seen it yet.
Not yet, yeah.
I haven't seen use of light and shadow that stark and that well done since you've seen Citizen Kane. Yeah, that level.
Well, just the trailers and such remind me of Damnation Alley. It reminded me of that, the look of it.
Oh,
That's kind of neo-noir look about it. Yeah.
Yeah. One thing that really shocked the heck out of me was in Best Documentary Feature, the Chris Reeves documentary. Wasn't even it, but I think they pulled it from consideration. But I would have thought that would have been an absolute shoe-in because of just how amazing and heart-wrenching that was. I will say that I'm still bitter about Moonage Daydream.
Yeah.
I'm still pretty bitter about it. So, best animated feature, we've got Flow, Inside Out 2, Memoir of a Snail, Wallace and Gromit, Vengeance Most Foul, The Wild Robot. I don't know. I don't know where that one goes. Maybe from the momentum of its own nominations, Wild Robot might get Best Animated Feature. Some of these, like I said, it's interesting what some people are thinking are basically a shoe-in as compared to what the really tight race is on this. And, of course, we got a few months to wait before. Yeah. And hopefully the fires will be out by then. Yeah. But before we get to any of that, obviously we've got some interesting stuff coming up soon because next week, Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man on Disney Plus. Mid-February, we're going to have Captain America, Brave New World. And a lot of people are watching this one because Disney has realized as good as shows on Disney Plus have been, they've got to start making things pay off at the box office. I would say nothing has illustrated that point more than Moana 2 because as you may remember, they had intended to release it on Disney Plus. And they decided not to do that, and now they've got $1 billion movie.
Right.
They're beginning to understand that as wonderful as it is to have successful shows on Disney Plus, they're going to have to start scoring in the box office. But they haven't had a lot of $1 billion hits, except Moana 2, obviously. Depending on who you're talking to, they're thinking that maybe this Captain America movie isn't going to be it. It's one of the things about this movie that I was surprised about is that it's going to be the shortest of the Captain America movies. I think it's barely breaking 2 hours, if it's even doing that.
Hey.
At the same time, I always love a nice, tight, well-told story. And if that's what we're getting, maybe this turns the franchise around. But a lot of people are concerned. I guarantee you the big brains at Disney are definitely concerned about this. But we're getting Superman before you know it.
As long as nothing happens to Crypto.
Well, yeah.
Never kill happens to Crypto, we riot.
We riot. But whatever happens, I guess we'll see.
We shall see.
And with that said, we come to the end of episode 239. Thank you for listening and tune in next time for the latest in geek news and views with the Geek Watch podcast. From Mandy Petry, this is Brian Hatcher, reminding all the Geek Watchers out there, we're all geeky about something. Be proud of yours. See you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Geek Watch podcast. If you enjoyed this program, Don't forget to like and subscribe on your preferred platform and share this podcast on your social media. For links to all the ways you can listen to the Geek Watch podcast, as well as leave comments and suggestions, visit our website at geekwatch.net. The Geek Watch podcast is a Hanging J production.